Do frameless glass showers leak? It's a question we get all the time, and the answer is yes. Frameless glass does leak. So how can that be? Why would anyone put an enclosure in their house that leaks? What's the point of it anyway? Those are all really good questions, very valid response, but there's something to consider. First off, hi, my name is Shannon McKinney, my company's DT Glass, and we have been installing custom frameless glass showers with happy customers. So how can that be? How do you have a happy customer and a leaky shower all at the same time? We need to reframe the question, because if you want to say, do frameless glass showers leak? What you're also saying is, are frameless glass showers completely watertight? Now, what would that look like? Well, it would be kind of like this. So you plug up the drain, you bar the door, you fill it with water, and you could swim around. That's not going to happen. Let me give you another example. If I have this water bottle, I expect this water bottle to be completely watertight. I can throw it in the bottom of my bag and not have any worries. However, if instead I want to carry around this cup, now this can sit in my car cup holder. I can carry it around, but I cannot expect to turn it upside down, throw it in the bottom of my bag. Does this cup leak? Yes. Well, how can this be? How can you have a cup that leaks? Well, it depends on the use. That's what I want you to think about with shower glass. Okay, let me show you exactly what I mean, because we've got this video. So first off, the water in this video is coming from a shower wand, and the wand is directed right at the edges of the glass at very close range. This isn't an actual shower experience, so already the expectations are too high. Here at DT Glass, we do caulk all of our fixed panels because we like the added stability and we want to provide that water resistance right up front. You should experience with us leak-free panels after our install, and we want to know if this isn't the case. We'll come back to touch it up. Now, this shower has an extra piece of hardware. That's the black metal threshold under the door, and that is providing some added water protection. The threshold sits just to the outside of the door where the flexible fins of the sweep will sit against it while the door is closed. And we don't automatically install a threshold. It depends on the rest of the shower. If a curb is flat or has very little slope, this really helps to keep standing water from flowing under or around the sweep. Even with the sweep and the threshold, it's too much to expect them to hold back water when it's sprayed directly under the door. Again, that wand is right there, not where it would normally be while you're showering, but it's still doing a pretty good job, especially when you learn that this curb is actually sloped the wrong way. Instead of directing water to the inside of the shower, it directs water to the outside of the shower. Now we're getting to the hinges in the back of the door. This is the area that is most prone to leakage because the hinge itself has gaps where it operates around the pivot point, and the back of the door is not connected to the wall. Of course, it needs to open and close. How can I design my shower so that I'm reducing the amount of water leakage that I'm going to get? That's a really great question because it really encompasses so much more than just the glass. The glass alone is not going to keep the water in the shower. Think of the shower as an ecosystem, so we have to make all the parts work together. First, we like to see the shower door hinged from the same wall as the shower head. In this setup, we know that the water is being directed away from the gap between the back of the door and the wall. It's also running parallel to the gap between the front of the door and the panel next to it. A larger shower is going to be much less prone to water leakage because water loses force before it makes contact with the glass. It doesn't have to be huge. Even a 4-foot shower with a standard shower head is usually sufficient. Next, when the curbs, benches, and other horizontal surfaces are being built, they should have a slight tilt to the inside of the shower to direct water towards the drain. Shower wands are the wild card in shower design. Who knows where the shower user is going to point it? We actually had a homeowner who was very unhappy with the amount of water coming out of her shower when she sprayed the glass to clean it, and some of it sprayed over the top of the enclosure. We should mention a couple of other water sources. Often a shower with a rain head is much more water resistant because the water is directed downward, but the worst of all water sources are high pressure body jets positioned right at the gap between the door and the panel. Sorry, but all bets are off on that one. We're talking about curbs here again, this time to mention that the curbs are instrumental on keeping water inside the shower. We'll talk more about using floor slope to help keep water in the shower in a curbless design, but it's never going to be as good as having a curb. Finally, drains should be at the center or the back of the shower and direct water away from the glass, not towards it. Avoid front drains. They are almost sure to allow water under the door. So that's what we want to do when we're designing showers, to be as leak resistant as possible. And we're happy to talk about this up front because at the planning stage, you have an opportunity and a chance to control these things better than when the shower is completely done and all we have to do is put glass in and we get what we get. Now, when we were looking at the picture of the shower, I mentioned that we want all of our curbs and horizontal surfaces to be sloped to the inside of the shower. So here's a little graph that explains how we want to slope that curb. So at the very top, we've got a good slope. We only need maybe about 1/4 inch over 6 inches worth of curb, just a slight slope, just running water downhill. Now the second picture, that's the worst case scenario, when you've got the curb sloped so that the water is going to simply drain out of the shower. We're not going to be able to keep that from happening, really. We can try, but you're really setting up the shower at a disadvantage. When we go in and we find out that the curb is sloped the wrong direction, we actually recommend a hard stop, a fix, and we come back. It'll be much better long term for you. Now the next one is where someone's just like flat works, right? And kind of technically, I guess, but what you end up with is a little bit of a puddle. So you'll have standing water sitting there, and then the water will go whatever direction you basically push it as you get out of the shower. Not a great design either. The last thing is when people say, well, if a slope is good, then let's just make a massive slope. It's not necessary. The way we put the door, we usually like to put it in the center of the curb, and if you've got a giant slope, then what we have to do is we have to lift the door up higher so that it will manage to open and go over the top of that curb if we want it in the center. The other option is that we can install the door more towards the outside of the shower so that then we can still have that sweep on there towards the top of the slope of that curb, but it's so unnecessary. Okay, here's a picture that has everything working against it. That shower head is pointed right at the gap in between the back of the door and the panel. And again, those hinges have gaps too, so there's definitely going to be water leaking out of that shower spray. It also is a very small shower, quite a bit of force as it hits the other side and impacts the glass. And then it also has a really small curb. It's one of those prefabricated shower pans, and they wanted it to be nice and thin, but not a lot of opportunity to direct the water back into the shower. Okay, so let's talk about some of the additional tools that we can use to make the shower more water resistant. First, we always put the sweep on. This goes in the bottom of the door. It's just pressure fitted, and this side has this curved piece to it. It goes to the inside of the shower. As the water rolls down the door, it rolls into the shower. Now down at the bottom, we've got these rubbery, flexible 2 fins. Those are going to sit right on the curb, and they'll just create a little bit of a barrier between the bottom of the sweep and the curb and keep the water from running under the door. Now the sweep goes side to side, but you may end up with gaps on either side. That's something we're still always having to watch for. Now another piece that we can use under the door is this threshold. This is a little 1/4 inch. It just stands up a little bit. It's really smooth, pretty simple to roll over, not that big of a deal to make your way over, and it does really do a good job, especially if you've got like a flat curb, because we don't want water to pool up and try and head out. Works a little bit as a dam. Here's another little tool. This one is called an H. It's got a little bit of a lowercase h look to it, and this is going to clamp onto the panel. It's going to go behind the door. It creates this plastic piece that covers the gap between the door and the panel. Now the door in this case, is going to close against this piece, so it's not going to be able to open inward anymore. If that's really important to you, then this may not be the greatest fix, but if you have a lot of water leakage, maybe you need it. This is where the pros and cons come in, and you figure out what's right for you. Another thing that we can do is we can take one of these pieces. This goes on the back of the door, and this little flexible piece sits in between the gap at the back of the door and the wall. Same thing, it's not going to allow the door to move in. With these two, we've got the gap covered at the front of the door, gap covered at the back of the door, and then we've got our sweep and we've got our threshold. Those are our primary tools. Now, one of the things that becomes a difficulty sometimes is that when we're installing one of these things, they take up space. And we work really hard to make that space in between the door and panel as tight as possible. In fact, our gaps are tighter than the industry average, which is great if you want the smallest gaps, but if that's still not good enough to have the smallest gaps, and now we have to go to some of these poly pieces, this may not fit because the gap is small. Maybe we adjust the door so that it's more towards the wall if we need this piece. Maybe we adjust the door so it's more towards the other panel if we need the back piece, but that is something that gets in the way, because if you wanted to have seals, we would actually in some cases increase the gap. Let's say that all of that works out and we're able to stop the water. We still have homeowners saying, well, I didn't want to have plastic all around my shower glass. I wanted to have that frameless look. And again, it's a matter of those trade-offs. If there's a very small shower and that shower is going to be really prone to leakage, and leakage is totally unacceptable, you might need to choose a semi-frameless shower or a fully framed shower. Everybody hates that metal all around the panels, but that metal serves a purpose. It is covering all those gaps, and the door only in those cases opens outward because a lot of times it's got like a little magnetic strip, so it closes nicely and firmly, and maybe semi-frameless is the way to go. Okay, let's talk a little bit about curbless showers. Now, curbless showers are really important if you have mobility issues. If you're having to push a walker or a wheelchair into your shower, then definitely you need to have a curbless shower. But if you really only want curbless because it seems like it looks good, keep in mind that those curbs are serving a purpose. They're keeping the water inside of the shower. So if you're going curbless, you're risking having that water come out, and you're really relying on proper slope, in some cases both inside and outside of the shower. So let me tell you what I mean there. We have this other chart here that is showing how to do curbless showers and how to slope both the inside of the shower and the outside of the shower. So you'll see on the left-hand side represents the outside of the shower floor, and the right-hand side is the inside of the shower floor. The top is what we want. You want to put that piece of glass either slightly to the inside or right on the grout line where the floor is moving from flat outside to sloped inside. Now, if we have the second scenario where it's the same thing, we've got a flat floor on the outside of the shower and a slope on the inside of the shower, but if we move that too far to the flat side of the floor, now what's going to happen is the water is going to pool and puddle there, and it risks sliding out of the door while it's sitting there. Also, it's going to cause your silicone to wear away more often, because after every shower you're going to have to sop up that water that's sitting there. So definitely pay attention to having it at that grout line. The next one that we show, I like to call the overachiever. Again, just like the curb, it's like, well, if slope is good, let's just slope everything. So this is a scenario where the entire floor of the bathroom is sloped to the back of the shower. Seems like a great idea. Maybe you can do like a gas station attendant and you just hose everything off at the end of the day. But what ends up happening here is if you want to have a swing door, now as we're trying to swing that door out, it could actually get stuck on the floor on the outside of the shower because the floor raises. Now the next one, this is the worst, a front linear drain. And front linear drains are great for construction. People have been sold these options because in a regular linear drain, when you're doing it right at the back of the shower, that means that you have to figure out how to dig down into your shower to create your slope. And what is underneath your floor? Well, floorboards, joists, really important things. And if you start cutting into that, that's going to be a problem. Makes it really difficult to create a curbless shower that slopes the right way if you're doing a remodel. Instead of sloping down to the back of the shower, you slope up to the back of the shower. Very simple to do construction-wise. Now with the drain in front, the idea is that the water is going to flow down to the door. It's all gonna go into the drain and everyone's gonna live happily ever after, but it doesn't. Have you ever seen when it's raining really bad on your house and the water is flowing off the roof, not all of it gets caught by the gutter. And that gutter is a whole lot wider than your front linear drain, so water is gonna slide right on past there. It's one of those things where you may be saving some money, saving some trouble by putting it in to begin with, but hating it every time you have to use it. Finally, I like to call this one the Great Divide. One part of the floor sloping one direction, the other part sloping the other direction, and we're hoping that the water lands in the right spot, because if it lands anywhere to the outside of the shower, now it's going to be rolling right into the middle of the room. So again, use that top one. Here is a prime example. This is a lovely shower. I'm really fond of this picture, and I've used it in quite a few marketing materials. However, a problem lurks within. Let's set the stage. Panel on the left, door on the right. The door's hinged on the same side as the shower head on the right wall. At the back wall, those are body jets pointed at the door. At full force, they were enough to push the door open slightly. Interesting thing with shower spray, some problems are solved just by putting a person in the shower. If the body jets were turned on in this shower while someone was in there, the water was stopped by the person before it got to the door. Next, let's locate the drain. It's a little bit hidden in this picture, but it's a round drain under the shower head near the center of the right wall. What we can't see are the improper slopes in the floor, but the water will always find it. The section of the floor right here was mostly flat, but slightly tilted to the front of the shower and the wall. Definitely not tilted towards the drain. While the shower progressed, a pool would form in this corner and slowly trickle through the space between the door sweep and the wall. But it didn't stop there, because the floor outside of the shower was not flat. It tilted to the right of this picture and back so that a consistent stream of water flowed out of the shower, around the wall, and into the carpeted walk-in closet. The right way to fix it? Fix the floor slope. But instead, well, what can the glass guy do? Tried a threshold, but the water buildup was so heavy that it flowed over the top. We tried seals around the door, but it really wasn't a door gap issue. It was a floor issue. Still, no desire to actually fix the floor. So what did? We swapped the door and panel. Swing door on the left where there was no water issue, panel on the right where we could silicone the glass to the floor and the water could pool without going anywhere. Well, I guess that means sometimes we do create a little bit of an aquarium, at least in the corner of a shower. I love helping people add safe, functional, and beautiful glass to their homes. If that's something you need, then subscribe to this channel. I'll tell you more about glass than you ever thought there was to know. And if you are within 2 hours of Oregon City, Oregon, we want to be your glass shop. Call me. Thanks for watching.